The Walking Dead show was a critical and commercial success, released in 2010, with it having 11 subsequent seasons. While viewer interest steeply declined throughout the seasons, many still appreciate what it was and how it influenced TV. Cut to 2 years later and The Walking Dead game releases. Although set in the same universe as the comics, it is not related to the show, and given that Telltale didn't have too much of a track record at the time, it seems the game may not do so well, or at least captivate people to the level that the show did. But 6 to 7 years later, with 4 seasons released, The Walking Dead game wasn't without its flaws, but many can look back at its beautiful send-off and appreciate the amazing game series it was. For those unaware, Telltale is a game studio that heavily emphasises choice and decision-making in their games. The gameplay is often basic, just consisting of quick-time events and dragging your cursor across the screen, but what captivated people was the story, and how your playthrough can be so much different to someone else who played. Telltale have been criticised over the years for some of their choices, as a few may not have had as large of an impact as what it should have been. Some also say the games are a bit too linear, and although the story changes throughout, the endings may only go down 1 or 2 roads. But with all that being said, I think it's best to take a quick look at some of the pivotal moments in the series, specifically one in each season, and how they can leave the player with some very tough decisions to make. In Season 1, you play as a man named Lee Everett, someone who starts off the game in handcuffs, and, not to foreshadow, but he ends it in handcuffs too. Anyway, walkers, or more commonly known as zombies in pop culture, are roaming around, and in this chaos you find a girl named Clementine, all alone with her parents nowhere to be found. Lee takes care of Clementine throughout the story, and the bond they have is heartwarming, and many players grow to love the both of them. Unfortunately, Lee gets bit, and whether players choose to cut off his arm or leave the bite as it is, it's evident that he will eventually turn into a walker himself. This is where the toughest choice out of all the seasons falls into the player's hands. The player can instruct Clementine to either leave Lee to die and turn into a walker, or have her shoot him, ensuring that won't happen. I imagine some players always choose one choice over the other, and while that's fair, I think it's justifiable to say it's morally grey and there's no good option. With Clementine only being a little girl, and with seemingly nobody left, it seems like an awful choice to have her shoot Lee, the only one who did anything for her throughout the season. Even in a world overrun, it wouldn't be easy to take a life, and putting that choice in a child's hands is really rough. Then again, Clementine likely can't live with herself knowing that leaving Lee to die means he will suffer, turning into a walker, and all he will be is a mindless husk of his former self. It's his dying wish to not be one of them, and so, accounting for everything that's happened, it's a very difficult choice to make. For the second season, I was debating on whether to talk about Kenny and Jane's confrontation, 2 characters the player cares for, although unfortunately for you, you have to pick which one lives and which one dies. While definitely up there as one of the hardest, I think the greyest area lies in whether Sarah lives or dies. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Why is it difficult to justify saving a child's life? Well, it's a good point, and while I don't disagree at all, only 40% of people actually chose to save her. This is likely due to her being a very irritating character, quite obviously being sheltered from the paradigm that is a zombie apocalypse, and therefore she adds a lot of unneeded stress and turmoil for the group. For the most part, she only drags the others down, and it's only more evident when the player has the choice on whether to risk Clementine's life and save her, or leave her to die. The player knows that even if she can be saved, she will indirectly, or directly, create more problems, since her sheltered life up to this point has meant that she isn't capable of surviving without constant help. Then again, she's also a kid, and it's not her fault that her dad Carlos brought her up in a way that hadn't prepared her for what's outside. Regardless of what the player chooses, she does die not long after, but it's still a difficult choice, as thinking logically or emotionally will heavily impact what you choose here. Season 3 is quite different in the sense that aside from Clementine and maybe a few other characters, there's a whole new cast the player grows alongside with and learns to love or hate. Late into the season, a large horde of walkers penetrate Richmond, a town mostly sheltered up until this point. While the player wrestles with choices that impact the future of the community, you're also forced to make decisions regarding the family's fate. Kate, a potential romantic interest, wants to help save Richmond from the walker threat, but David, your brother, wants to take his son Gabe to shelter outside the city. If you choose to help Kate in a quest, she will be saved, but David will die, and vice versa with helping David and Gabe. For me, it wasn't particularly hard to make the choice, as I overall found David a hard character to sympathise with, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it's Gabe's dad. He originally thought he was dead, and once the player finds David again, it's hard knowing that if he dies, Gabe will have to go through the grieving process once more. Still, he is someone who has done a lot of evil, and especially if the player has gone down the relationship route with Kate, it may be easier to save her life as she's a bit more likeable. This doesn't make it easy though, as weighing in the factors can serve difficult. And finally, Season 4, one that didn't almost happen due to Telltale's financial troubles. We still have an ending though, and it's what some consider the hardest choice in The Walking Dead, and that is whether to save Clementine or let her die. Drawing many parallels from the ending of the first season, it's only further amplified due to the player having played as or alongside Clementine across all 4 seasons. Ultimately, regardless of whether the player chooses for her to be killed or for her leg to be chopped off, she ends up surviving. At the time of making the choice though, it's very difficult for all the same reasons as Season 1's choice with Lee. Many criticise the fact that the choice doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, and while it's true, I think Clementine still surviving with one less leg than before is a bittersweet ending to the beautiful Walking Dead game series. Thank you for watching to the end, and I genuinely appreciate it a lot, and a like or comment would be great. Please have a nice day, and I hope to see you again.